Hey folks, welcome in to the monthly training, and we've got a great session this morning lined up. We've got one of our mastermind members, Jeff Krieger, who's based out of Philadelphia, and I think he's been a mastermind member for about 4 years, and he is going to take us through some of the things he has done from a marketing perspective. And it's all very well listening to me lecturing you, saying you should do this and you should do that, but there's nothing I think people seem to enjoy seeing what a real life architect does when it comes to marketing, particularly someone who's good at it. So welcome, Jeff.
Thank you, Richard.
I think we've interviewed you before, haven't I? This is not the first.
We did a session months ago, yes.
Yeah, it was a long time ago, I thought, but that's great. Why don't you give everybody a quick rundown on who you are, what you do, who you do it for, and all that sort of stuff.
Okay, well, first, thanks to everybody who's tuned in. I hope you find this informative, and I'm sure we'll have time for Q&A. So I run a small firm in Northwest Philadelphia. I've had my own practice for about 25 years now. I moved here to work at Venturi Scott Brown, worked on some really large international projects, and during the recession in the early 90s, I found myself out on the street and had always wanted to start my own practice. Nobody was hiring, so I figured, why not? And boy, what I didn't know then. But we scratched.
What year was that, Jeff?
What's that?
What year would that have been?
1993, 94, somewhere in there. So I scratched and clawed and slowly built up a practice, hired people, and we do a lot of custom residential right now. We've also done a fair bit of institutional work for schools, churches, nonprofits, and a smattering of commercial. But like any of you who've been in business for the last 10 years, the recession hit us really hard in 2009 and took about 4 or 5 years to recover from that. And as I got a little more advanced in age and a little less hair on the top of my head, after coming out of the recession, I just didn't feel as though we were reaching our potential as a firm and hadn't accomplished some of the things that I had intended to do. So that's when we turned to architects marketing. And I've learned a tremendous amount in the last several years participating in the mastermind program. And it's really transformed how we approach interactions with prospective clients and with current clients and past clients.
All right. So why don't you've got some slides and I'd like you to run through those. Now, people feel free to ask Jeff questions anytime. I'll kind of monitor the questions. And the focus is really on what sort of marketing he's doing. So if you've got any questions around what he shows you, he's also going to, I think, show sort of, I guess, his transformation as well. So do you want to pull those slides up, Jeff?
Sure. Let me start off first by mentioning that I came to AMI very reluctantly. And I went to one of the first sessions that they had with the mastermind group, and there's something called a hot seat where you sit in front of your peers and Richard and explain something that is a problem you'd like help solving. And people were saying, I'm having a hard time getting a hold of this real estate developer. I don't know what my niche is, one thing and another. They were fairly specific problems. So when it was my turn, I sat in a chair and Richard said, well, what's your problem? And I said, I hate marketing. And I was expecting a big slap on the back of my noggin. But Richard started asking questions about why. Why did I hate marketing? And I just equated it with selling, and selling was something that I felt was beneath the dignity of architects. And I wouldn't be surprised if a number of you feel the same way. So the first thing that had to happen before we can implement any of the things I'm going to show you is a change in my mindset as the firm owner, from thinking of marketing as selling to marketing as education, helping give clients what they want. And without that change in mindset, I don't think we would have even begun to achieve some of the marketing successes that we've had.
I just want to reiterate that point because you just made that so quickly. And just in case people missed it, Jeff went from feeling that selling equals annoying people, being sleazy, being manipulative. That was his beliefs around what selling was before. And then he changed it to selling is finding out, right? So that was, and of course, who wouldn't despise the idea of selling and marketing if that's how you looked at it. He then changed his approach to selling and marketing is simply finding out what people want and giving it to them. So it's not it's just helping people. Selling is helping people, and that's really summarizes the change in mindset that you went through. Is that fair to say?
It is, and it helped that I didn't mention this before, but I also have been teaching architectural design at the high school and college level for the last 30 years. So to think about marketing as educating rather than selling just made a big difference to me, and maybe it will to some of you.
Yeah. I'm just going to move somewhere.
All right,
Quiet.
there, Richard.
There we go. Seeing you got the flooring. Okay.
All right, so I'm going to run through some of the before and after slides of how we used to approach various components of marketing, and then what we've done in the last 3 years. And then we'll take questions, and I'll drill down in more detail into something called the low commitment consultation, which we have found to be extremely effective in obtaining new clients and managing my time chasing work in a much more efficient, effective fashion. Okay, so sorry, let me start this slideshow here. It's down here.
So just while you're doing that, feel free to type any questions into the questions window. Yeah. There's a questions window there. You can just type in, and if you type those in, I'll keep an eye on those and can ask Jeff as we're going through. But you really want to tap into Jeff because he is an architect. He is like you. He can give an architect's perspective rather than a marketer's perspective, and he's been there and he's done it. So, all right.
Okay, I lost my little slideshow here. Sorry, I'm just trying to get the slideshow back. All right, so as I mentioned just a minute ago, to me, marketing was selling. And the big dramatic transformation was marketing is helping people. So what did we do before to attract prospective clients? Follow up on phone calls and leads, chase down referrals, but we didn't have any documentation, any educational tools, any offers to give. So we put together these client guides and put them on our website. And I just tried to answer the questions that I thought prospective clients that we wanted to have as clients wanted for answers. So how much does my project cost? How long will my project take? What do I need to consider when hiring an architect? What is the process? So we put these guides together, put them on our website, and prospective clients can download them in exchange for their email information.
Now, do you use these when you've got a meeting? Do you send these to clients before the meeting? Do you use them in that way as well
Um,
to indoctrinate them?
Sometimes we do. It depends on the project, but generally, they've already requested these
Okay.
in advance.
And what feedback have you had on these documents?
We've gotten pretty good feedback when we get feedback. Sometimes people request them and then we don't hear from them. They may be in the early stages of looking for an architect to hire. So it could be 6 months, 2 years before we actually hear from them. The ones that we do hear from, they're engaged, they're ready to go, and so they don't have as many questions about the material that we've put out. These are really more sort of early lead generation tools, but we do use them on occasion when we have prospective clients.
Okay.
Okay. And I'll get into this in more detail, but the other thing we've done is we've really started tracking all of our qualified leads, meaning a qualified lead being someone that has a project that is of interest to us. So we never did this before, and now we do. And again, later in the hour, I can talk about how we use this information. Okay, initial consultations. Again, I'm going to expand on this later, so I won't spend a lot of time on it now. But I imagine a lot of you will go out and you hear of a potential lead. You'll meet with a prospective client at their job site. You'll talk to them about their project. You'll give them some ideas, and if they're interested and they get back to you, then you'll write a written proposal and wait to hear from them. And that's how we did it as well. And we didn't charge for that consultation, not anymore. And again, I'll save this for later in the talk. Okay, so these aren't necessarily in order, but what is some of this marketing meant in terms of the impact on our business? Well, we do really nice work, and we're very proud of the work we've done. But I have to say that as a result of the various marketing initiatives that we've undertaken, we have seen our practice gravitate towards larger and more architecturally interesting and compelling projects. Client education, you've heard me talk about that transformation from marketing being selling to marketing being client education. The other thing we've done is then produce materials that for the clients to walk them through the process, because many of our residential clients have never hired an architect before, and they don't really know what the process looks like or what they're expected to know, what we do. So we've really beefed up some of the material that we provide to prospective clients and to actual clients to take them through phase by phase.
Now, I just want to interrupt here because I think the roadmap that Jeff and some of the other people are producing are absolute gold. And why is it so important to have a visually attractive roadmap? Well, I'm going to say some things, but Jeff, you can give some feedback as well. But the results I've heard from people when they're using these, they can be used basically to win projects because finally someone can see what's actually happening. For most clients, it's a big black hole and they don't know how it works and what happens first, second, third, fourth. To have an architect turn up and have a systemized process with their name on it, the balance process, which is what Jeff calls his one. It looks like you're organized. It looks like you're a professional. It looks like you know what you're doing. It also looks like you can explain to a client what's actually going to happen in a way that they can understand. And boy, do they appreciate that.
Yeah.
So it's a selling tool as much as an organizing tool, and it shows that you have systems and processes.
Right. It's also something on paper. It's a leave behind. So rather than having me spout out the 5 or 6 different phases of a project in words and then not having the client remember the difference between schematic design and construction documentation. They have a pictorial. Okay, testimonials, right? We're in the referral business, particularly in the residential world. What did we used to do about testimonials? Nothing. So now we're moderately diligent about getting our clients to say some nice things about us and our work. And we put that on our website and we use them elsewhere. And that really has made a difference because today the website is your online portfolio. It's where people go to check you out before they even pick up the phone or make an email. And people want to know that other people who've worked with you have good things to say. We could do a better job of collecting these. We could make this a little bit more systematized, but at least we now have a dozen or more testimonials.
The thing with social media nowadays is in the past, you couldn't really, we had limited, the only ones who controlled publishing information on a mass scale were the newspapers and the TVs. They had the distribution network. Now with Facebook and Instagram and all the other social media channels, we are all publishers. We can all be publishers. So people are going to talk about your business whether you want them to or not, because they have their own distribution network through those social media channels. You can't stop them. So it's your job really to control them a bit. You know, we are all now publishers. Everybody is a publisher, and we can reach thousands or millions of people at the press of a button. It's never been like that in any time in history, up until the internet and social media came along. So,
yep. Okay. You know, I mentioned that we're contacting clients and prospects more than we used to. We have more touches. But the other thing is, when the jobs are done, we used to say thank you, take our photographs, and not really follow up. Maybe an email or a call a year later just to see how they were doing, but that was the end of it. And because we've been in business for a long time, some of these clients have referrals or second projects 10 years, 15 years down the road. And we weren't doing anything to stay in touch with them. And I'm sure we lost business because of it. So now we have a quarterly newsletter that we send to all of our prospects, our current clients, our past clients, selected contractors, and consultants. And that way, you know, at least whether they read it or not, they know we're still in business and we're still trying to stay in touch with them. We do our best to make it interesting and articles that might appeal to clients. We feature one of our projects, but then the rest of it's all of general interest. It's work, but it's worth it. So the other thing we did, and this is often the very first tip out of Richard's mouth, is we raised our fees. And we continue to raise them. And we have yet to really reach any major resistance from the marketplace. We have lump sums, we have fee caps, so we're not billing hourly unlimited. I mean, who wouldn't like that? But we have definitely dramatically increased our billing rates, and as far as I can tell, with no deleterious impact.
can you give us tell us the exact number, but what percentage have you increased your fees over that time period?
In the last 4 years, I would say probably about 50%.
Nice. And it doesn't sound like you've hit the ceiling either, Jeff.
No, we just raised them again January 1st, and we'll see. Because our proposals tend to have some sort of cap, associated with it, then the onus is on us to bring the project in for the required number of hours. But we've not met resistance really in terms of what we're charging per hour.
It's a lot easier to bring the project in when your fees are 50% higher, isn't it?
It is. Yeah, again, I mean, we've just not had really any pushback. Now we're also being more selective about the projects we take on. So somebody in the past that we might have been very price conscious, had a small scope project. We're just not doing those anymore. So some of it's natural selection.
Yeah, this is a big one for most people. Most of you people on this call today, you're undercharging, and I say that because everybody I tell to put the fees up, very seldom is there any fee objection. Well, sorry, there is fee objection, but then there was fee objection at their lower rates, and about the same portion. So if 50% of the people are complaining about your fees when you give them out now, you put them up 50%, you'll probably still have 50% complaining about them, because some people just like to complain. And some people, they've got no idea what you do. So they're in no position to say you're too expensive or you're too cheap. They've got no idea what an architect does. I still don't know. I've been working with you guys for 5 years. I still don't really know what you do in detail. So we're in no position to ever judge, how much something should cost or not. But yes.
Yep.
All right.
Okay. So one of the things these higher fees and more selective projects and better jobs have enabled us to do is to renovate our office, which we just completed the end of last year. The photograph on the right is a work in progress. We're still not done with some of the artwork and decorating, but we've been waiting to do this for a long time, and now we were finally in a financial position to pull the trigger and gut our old space and completely redo it and expand up to a second story. Okay.
So have you grown in staff numbers as well?
We've actually stayed about the same.
Right. You just got more space.
We just have more space. We were really crammed in before. We did not have enough room, and that's been fixed. We have a new conference room with a decent monitor, and we have better facilities, and we have a lot more floor space, and we have room for expansion. That was the other problem. One of the reasons we haven't increased our staff was we had no place to put them. So we now have probably 3 additional workstations. Okay. I was going to switch to the LCC, Richard, unless you want to take some questions now.
Sure. If anyone's got any questions, just type them in. Staff count, says Eric Mickerton. How many staff have you got?
Hi, Eric. We are, depending upon how you count heads, about 7 people, which includes 1 bookkeeper / marketing assistant, several project architects, and some architectural designers, and myself.
And Cameron Maltby said, when explaining, when I say I don't know what architects do, he said, we perform magic, Richard. You should know that by now. Yes, I do. I know, but I don't know how magic works either. So yes. There we go. All right. Okay. You proceed with the LCC. I'm sure as we get more specific, there'll be more specific questions.
Okay.
And I do recommend, guys, dig into Jeff's brain, because he is a generous soul. He will tell you what he knows, and the fastest way to learn is from someone else.
Right. Okay.
All right.
So now I'm going to talk about the low commitment consultation, heretofore called the LCC. So this was something that Richard introduced to us. It seemed to appeal to me because I had spent a lot of time chasing down leads that really never materialized, and found I was spending 10 or 12 or more hours meeting with somebody, going back to my office, writing up a proposal, and then finding out they not pursued the project or they hired someone else. It was just defeating. So we've embraced this LCC concept. And essentially what it means is we now charge for consultations, with one exception, which I'll explain. And I would say 90% of the people that contact us about a consultation agree to pay us some modest amount of money for me to come out and meet with them at their site.
%90.
Yeah.
That's quite a lot.
9 out of 10 of the people that get through to me, and I'll go through the process of how we screen leads.
Right.
But when they come to me, that's what we call a qualified lead. 90% of them are agreeing. When I propose, I will come see you for a $250 fee or a $500 fee, whatever the number may be. 9 out of 10 times they say fine.
Yep.
And in fact, we had one client about a year ago who interviewed 3 architects. 2 of them came out and met him for free, and I didn't know this person. They didn't come via referral. They came from the website. And I said, we offer this paid consultation. And they said, okay. And we got the job. And when we queried why, one of the reasons they gave was, well, because you charged us for your time. So therefore, we found that what your expertise must be that much more valuable than the other architects we talked to.
And you're more professional.
And we're much more professional, and our fees were higher. That was the other thing. We didn't learn this until after they'd reviewed our fee proposal. That's not every client, wish it were so, but that really made us feel pretty good about this approach.
It sure beats a race to the bottom, doesn't it?
Yes. Okay. So the backbone of the consultation is an offer that is on our website, encouraging prospects to contact us and schedule one of these consultations. So this is what ours looks like. There's other examples, and you tailor this to the market that you want to pursue. And it doesn't even have to be residential.
No, typically people charge a lot higher fees for LCCs to commercial.
Yeah.
One thing I say is you don't call it an LCC. LCC stands for low commitment consultation, a low commitment consultation. So you wouldn't call it that. You would call it a needs and options review or a feasibility study or a design diagnosis. Eric Mickerton, I think he calls his.
Right.
Anyway.
So we list right in the document, we list the deliverables, what we will do for you, and we give them a range of fees. So it's a meeting, it's meet and greet followed by a written report. Essentially, it's a very preliminary feasibility study.
And
okay.
What do you charge? Everyone wants to know, what everyone else charges.
Okay.
What do you charge for an LCC, and how do you work out?
Sure. So if I'm just going out and meeting someone and I can answer their questions on site with no follow-up, it's usually a $250 fee, assuming it's local. And it builds from there if we need to do zoning research or a cost estimate or stormwater management research. So we just booked one yesterday where it's $2,500 because it's sort of everything on the menu. And
Do you
we've
have
got some colleagues that do.
do you have a menu that you show them,
I'm
or
sorry?
do you have a menu that you show them and say which of these things do you want, or do you just suggest what you think would be appropriate?
I tailor this based upon the phone call, which precedes the meeting.
Right.
So I think that may be coming up in a subsequent slide here.
Okay.
Okay, so this is how we used to handle leads. Oh, sorry. Okay, this is the way we used to do it. We did maybe 25 a year. They took an average of 12 hours. That's 300 hours. And maybe a few of those turned into jobs, but the ones that didn't were really costing a lot of time and therefore money. Now, we do these paid consultations. They take similar amount of time. We're doing a similar number of them, but we're getting paid.
Well, interesting too that your conversion rate went up.
Yeah,
I think it was something like
absolutely.
you
Right.
went from, for free, you were converting about 30 something percent.
Yeah.
Now, when you're charging a fee, you're converting at 42.5%.
Right. And that number may go up because we had a lot of these toward the end of last year where people just haven't committed yet to moving forward with the project.
Right. And you can see that Jeff tracks the conversion rates on that spreadsheet he showed you earlier. He's tracking everything. So these are accurate numbers.
Yeah. And
And,
I'll show that again. So the one exception that I mentioned, what we don't charge is if we have a referral from a realtor or a contractor or a client, we will say to the prospect, we normally charge X dollars to come out and talk to you. But because we've been referred by your friend so-and-so or your realtor, we'll waive that $250 fee. If there's zoning research or a cost estimate, we'll charge for that, but we won't charge them for my time. And that's appreciated. And it's a win-win for the person referring us and for the prospect.
right.
So I don't mind, spending a couple hours and not charging somebody who's been referred to us because that person is far more likely to become a client.
Yep.
And reflects back on the people who did refer us because then they're more likely to refer us again to someone else, knowing
Correct.
that in that instance we won't be charging their recommendations.
Correct. Great. So $15,000 in LCC fees over what period of time?
A year.
The last year. Okay.
Last year. Yeah.
Okay.
Hold on, I'm missing some slides here.
And notice, the interesting thing, by charging a fee, not only did you make an extra 15,000, but he would have made more money because, well, one thing it seems like, you're attracting better quality clients. The other thing is the conversion rate going up. You're also making money from the fact that you're now winning more projects.
Right, and that's not included in that slide. All right, let me try this again. All right. Sorry, we just redid this and it looks like the whole thing didn't process, but let me go back to an earlier version. Okay, this is the basic process that we go through. So we get a request either by website, phone call, or email. It goes into my marketing coordinator. Amy asks questions. She doesn't just automatically pass these things on to me. So if we get a phone call, she responds with a phone call. If we get an email, she responds by email. And she tries to determine where the project is, what the approximate scope is, and if people are willing to divulge it, what their budget is. Based upon that information, If it meets the criteria that we've established, then she schedules a 15-minute call with me and puts it in my calendar. And then we call at that time. I explain what the clarity report is about, what the services are, and we determine, do they need zoning? Do they want a cost estimate, stormwater management, et cetera? And that's when I'll set the fee and close by setting up a meeting.
So they agree to the fee on the first call with you after they've contacted the office.
Yeah.
Amy then gets back to them, sets up a meeting with you. You speak to them, requalify them, let them know the next step would be for you to give me money and for me to do this exercise for you.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Right.
Right. So when Amy passes them off to me, that's when we consider them to be qualified leads. And those are actually the only ones we track. All the other phone calls that come in that don't turn in anything, we don't even bother tracking those. And the one thing I've learned from the 15-minute chat, and sometimes it's 30 minutes. I mean, I'm not running a timer. But when the person on the other end of the line says, well, let me talk to my partner and I'll get back to you, that's the last we will hear from them. Right? Because either they're not the decision maker or they don't want to pay for the consultation.
Yep.
And the old me would have really been hurt by that.
Yeah.
Right? They don't like us. They don't want to use our services. I said something wrong. The new me says, life is short, move on. They're not the right client for us.
Yeah, and you've also probably saved yourself a lot of time. I mean, that's the other thing
Right.
you've mentioned before, is how much time by using this process, how much time I have saved, because it's not just the money, the $15,000 a year in LCC fees, and it's not just the fact they convert at 42.5% rather than 30%. And it's not that, that equals more projects. It's also, I'm not spending time with people who are not serious.
Right.
And I mean, but that's a massive, talk about that, because that's a gain in itself.
Yeah, I mean, that's really key. And we're going in in a better position of power, but it saves all that churn that I used to experience chasing down leads that were never really going to be the right fit for us. And I've got plenty of other marketing work to do, or project work, or design work. So the time that's come back to me is valuable.
How long would you have spent in the past on the average lead, regardless of whether it went ahead or not? Well, how much time are you saving maybe that you used to do for leads that didn't convert?
Well, I figured, again, we were spending anywhere from 10 to 15 hours between the meeting and the proposal that followed.
Right.
And we were getting less than a third of those projects.
Right.
Now we're spending a little bit less time per client, but our conversion rate is much higher. And the people we're talking to are much closer to the type of clients we would like. That was the problem before, was we didn't ask the qualifying questions and we were just chasing projects that were too small for us or too far away. And we've weeded those out. All right, so lead tracking. This has been really interesting and informative. Never used to do this before, as you saw in the earlier slides. So when we get a qualified lead, they go into a Google Doc spreadsheet, and we track them. And I've developed this color coding system as to whether they're active leads, dead leads, or became real projects. Doesn't take a whole lot of time. I update it maybe every couple weeks. Um, but the key here is the lead source column. And so we identify, was this lead from a referral, from a website, or from a past client? And then we run statistics on those annually. And I've learned something that should have been obvious, but I just wasn't looking. And that is that for us, probably close to 2/3 to 3/4 of our leads come from referrals.
So, sorry, what was that? 2/3?
Yeah, in this
Yep.
particular example, 70% of our leads came from referrals.
Right.
Historically, it's probably closer to 75%.
Mm-hmm.
And while I may have kind of implicitly understood that before, I didn't have any statistics to back it up. So here's what we've learned. Since 75% of our leads are coming from referrals, wouldn't it be obvious and make sense that 75% of our marketing effort should be towards those people that can give us referrals?
Yeah. Dirty
Right?
30.
Yeah. Yeah. So we have a whole series of strategies that I don't have time for today to talk about how to connect with those referrals. You saw the newsletter before, that's one. There's many others, but that's where we've decided to focus our marketing efforts. The website is not unimportant. Well, the other thing I've learned is that you still need a good website, and the website and the social media is for people who don't have an established network in your region. So we've picked up some really plum projects for people moving here from out of town, for example, because they don't have a local network and they go online. We've picked up some really nice projects from couples in their 30s and 40s because they don't have that established network. They may not have kids in schools. They may not belong to clubs yet, but they sure know how to use social media and the internet. So while the website is really critical for us, we're not putting a whole lot of time and money into it. We redesigned it a couple years ago and we tweak it, but most of our effort and our time is going into connecting with contractors, realtors, current and past clients, because that's where the majority of our work comes from. So I would encourage everybody to do some modest form of lead tracking and just learn from the data.
I'm not sure if it's in the 6 program, but we used to have a spreadsheet like this that you could download from the training. Now, might have been the old training, and we cut some of it out. So I'm not sure if it's available in the 6 training, but
there's a version of this, but I have tweaked it and customized it and added a bunch of columns.
Yeah.
And the tabulating all the lead sources that you see at the top of the page, that's something that we added on our own. But it's just a basic spreadsheet. It doesn't really matter kind of how complex or simple you make it. The key is just track your leads. Okay, so what is the LCC or the Clarity Report, as we call it, done for us? We've covered some of these things, but you can just see the bullet points here. And I would just have you focus on the last couple. People who hire us are far more likely to become clients after they've done one of these feasibility studies. We are seen as experts in our market because we're charging for our time. And the rest of the competition out there isn't doing it. And so that elevates us in the eyes of the prospect. I'm doing averaging about 25 or of these a year, 2 a month. It's cyclical. I got done 5 since January 2nd, but that's because this is the time of year when a lot of people say, oh, let's do that edition we've been putting off. But it's just been really beneficial for a variety of reasons that I've tried to explain.
Can I just ask, how, just type in the questions window if you can. We've got quite a few people here. A lot of you have been members for a while. Just type in yes if you're doing an LCC. Type in yes if you're doing an LCC in the questions window, and no if you're not. No, and no if you're not. It'd be interesting to do a quick poll. Okay, we've got Eric Micton, yes. Lawrence Schreiber, yes. Francis Klein, yes. Kevin Wolf, yes. John Webster, yes. John Jones, yes. Cameron says, have one, but have never had the potential client bite. Interesting. Joseph says, no. Joseph was on AMA 1. You're on the very first program. Steve Nichols, yes, right in the middle of writing one now. Hi, says Joseph. Yeah. Interesting. Okay, so most of you are. The next question most people want to know, just type in what's your average fee for an LCC. What do you average charge on average? I won't read out names. I'll just read out the numbers. So, okay, 1,500. The next one is 2,875 is his average LCC. $950 for a feasibility / discovery. 900 to 1,800 for Lawrence. 2,500. Okay, good. So there's a bit of a range, isn't there?
Mm-hmm.
Cameron Maltby is, how could this marketing style be implemented if you don't have a referral network? Jeff, maybe you can answer that.
Get one.
Get one, yeah. I mean, you're only as good as an architect is a referral business. You're only as good as your network. Obviously we teach you marketing and things like that, but the marketing helps you define who your ideal client is. It helps you define your goals. It gives you a process. You're still going to get most of your leads from referrals, which is why we have the Directory of Experts and the Dirty 30 and all those type of referral strategies. Having an LCC helps if they're LCC client, but you could use an LCC with any type of clients. They don't have to be referred people.
Right.
They can be anybody.
Right. A number of ours come through the website.
Right. Okay. Steve Nichols says, looking at 750 initially, followed by another 1 to 2K for a simple concept ideas drawing. Yeah, I would be careful about getting into drawing and concepts because you're now moving into design.
Right.
So I would personally, I always recommend that you just keep it to advice. Once you start getting into design, you start cannibalizing your design which is supposed to come, when they do it properly. Eric Micton, 900 to 2,000, adding $500 for full zoning research document. Okay, good. So a lot of you are using this.
Yeah, I should add that we never do any drawings as part of this. This is informational in research only. I will talk about various options and schemes on site, but we don't do drawings until we're under contract for the real, the big job.
Yep. You'll just cannibalize your design fees. And you give them something that they can take and go away and give to a draftsperson or a builder or they'll go, I can finish it myself. Of course they can't, but if they think they can, it's a problem. Same with marketing. All right, great. Is that the end of your slides, Jeff?
That is, I wanted to be sure to leave time for Q&A.
All right. Well, we've got a few moments. So Eric Mickerton says, sometimes I give a bubble diagram showing why an existing house doesn't work. Okay. So a drawing that shows why something doesn't work, that's the only type of drawing you could do. That would work. A bubble drawing, yeah. Do you get any leads through Howls?
If that question is directed to me, the answer is not anymore. And just quickly elaborate. So we used to have a paid listing on House, and we got a handful of leads for projects that we considered too small for us. And because we weren't really getting any bang for our buck, we dropped the paid listing. Now we really don't get any leads through House. I did not find it to be in our market an effective use of our marketing budget. I have heard stories of other architects that have used it quite successfully, but it just didn't work for us.
I've heard a lot who it doesn't work for. The odd person says it does, but my general experience talking with a lot of architects is it doesn't work. Paying money to House, generally, I haven't heard too many success stories. So that's my feedback. Not saying you couldn't if you did it suitable. Peter too, he does quite well, but it's more from his. I think it's more what he puts up there than the paid promotion side. So he's won a lot of House awards and all that type of stuff. So his homepage or whatever you call it is probably the thing that gets him the leads. For someone who has tried an LCC and says it doesn't work in my area, or what advice do you have for someone who hasn't quite nailed this yet?
I guess I would just establish what it is your ideal client wants to know, and where you can provide the answers. So is that about zoning? Is it about cost? Is it about stormwater management regulations? Is it about building code issues? Is it about insulation? Is it about the process? I mean, that's the first step, is to see what information you possess that your ideal client wants to learn more about.
Another question here from Kevin Wolf. Do you use shock and awe box?
We do not. And only because we have not put together the components. I have nothing against it. If I had one, I would use it, but currently we have a package of documents and a letter and that process chart that you saw, but it doesn't rise to the level of what I've seen other architects do and call their shock and awe box.
Mm-hmm. Brilliant. All right, we've got 4 minutes until the hour. I've got another webinar in 4 minutes. So if there's any final questions you want to ask Jeff, you can probably reach Jeff directly on the 6 channel. If you can message people directly on the, if you're a 6 member, on the Slack channel. So, hey, I want to thank you, Jeff. Thank you very much. That was great. It's great to see the inside workings of a marketing architecture firm, and in particular going deep on the LCC. So on behalf of everybody here, thank you very much. Kevin Wolf says excellent. So yeah, big thank you very much, Jeff Krieger.
You're welcome. Very welcome. Happy to share with colleagues here.
Brilliant. And actually, that's a final point I'd like to make, is that we are in this together. I mean, I think the whole industry needs to work together to raise the tide for architects and designers in general. I think architects are one of the most probably ripped off, particularly around the free work area of getting, can you come and do a design? Can you come and do a free site visit? All that type of stuff. One of the most sort of ripped off industries I've ever come across. The general, people view architects as overpaid artists. And I think it's not really a case of everybody trying to do marketing to compete everybody else. As a community, the design community needs to get together and learn how to communicate value much better so that the whole industry lifts. So that's my final thought for the day. Thanks for sharing. This is Cameron Maltby, and everyone's just saying thanks in the chat window. So thanks, Jeff, and thank you everybody for attending. We'll see you next month.
All right, you're welcome. See ya. Hope this was useful.
It's great.